there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. I am back again today using the Scented Blooms stamp from the Woodware craft collection, and the last time I did this I went full on rainbow but didn't colour the actual image. I left the image white. So today we are kind of going to do the opposite, but I wanted to use a really limited palette of colours. So I wanted to limit myself to 2 or 3 for the entire project, and I really didn't want it to look flat still. So that's my challenge today. Now I ended up using 3 colours, but I definitely think I could have gotten away with 2 because 2 of the colours that I used are very similar. But anyway, I am going to line this up on a card front here, and this is going to be a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock. Now I am going to be using some Distress Oxides to colour this today. Of course you can use any medium at all. I used my anti-static powder pouch to make sure that the embossing powder only sticks in the places that we want it to today, and I used some VersaFine Onyx black ink to stamp the outside, and that way the embossing powder is going to stick to it because it's a pigment ink and stays wet for just that little bit longer. I'm using my heat gun to make sure that it's thoroughly melted. And you'll know that it's really well melted when it turns nice and shiny. You don't want it to just turn dull coloured. It will kind of have quite the shine to it, and you'll be able to move it back and forward in the light. Now I am using Weathered Wood, Chipped Sapphire and Hickory Smoke in the Distress Oxide range. Now I am just going to pop a little bit down from the Reinkers here just because that's easier for me and I can use a smaller space to pop them down onto. The Weathered Wood and the Hickory Smoke, to me it feels a little bit like a warm grey and a cool grey. Sometimes I find that having lots and lots of choice, particularly with products surrounding me, I find it really hard to make decisions and just go with it. So limiting my palette to just a couple of colours really works for me, and these colours were a little bit different than what you might otherwise just use for the flowers and the petals, the traditional greens that you might use on the petals or browns. So I was going a little bit out of my comfort zone, and I really like how this ended up. It was simple, it was easy, and I really enjoyed it, and that's the main thing. So I did add a whole lot of water on here. I am painting with a water brush, which I find really helpful. I will add a little bit of water to the entire flower, then add the Weathered Wood into the center. Then I will drop in some of the chipped sapphire around the outside, and you can see that again there's kind of no rhyme or reason. I'm not making sure that there's a particular amount of color or water somewhere. I just make sure that there is plenty of water. I drop some of the color in. If I like it, I leave it, and if I don't like it, I move the color around with my brush. If I add too much color, then I just pick it up with a little paper towel and pop more color back down. And that's the beauty of working on watercolor paper, is that it does enable us to move the colors around, and they move nicely without too much effort on my part. So here I am just going to do a similar thing with the leaves. I add water on, and I'm going to mix up that oxide again because it kind of started to separate a little bit because it had been sitting there. And then I somewhat follow the lines, the veins of the leaf, and that way I want the most colour to be concentrated around there. I'm not going for a thorough covering, I guess you could call it, of the leaves. I don't mind if there is some white space, and that has taken me a long time to kind of be okay to leave white space. I used to think and feel that an image kind of was, coloured in nice and neatly and you coloured the image properly, but I have definitely learned to love the look of leaving some white space, and it is really hard to do. I still find it challenging, but I also like knowing the things that are challenges for me and that I can work on them and learn more about them. So I am just doing this my way. There is by no means, I never claimed to be an artist or any sort of good at watercoloring at all, so definitely shouldn't watch for any ideas on that. But I'm going to add a little bit of kind of details here and there. I'm adding some darker ink of the same ink, the Chipped Sapphire, but just less watered down into the little veins there of the flowers and things. Then I'm just going to add some decorative dots. The flowers obviously don't actually have these, but then again, I don't know if these flowers come in blue either. It doesn't matter, it was just me having fun. And then these will dry back a little bit and not be so quite so prominent once they are dry. I did cut a little bit off each side there, sorry I missed that in the filming. It's the most frustrating thing when you look up and realize that actually that little recording button is not flashing. But I'm going to add the same chipped sapphire and just blend it around the edges just a tiny little bit. Again, I'm trying to leave some of that white space around the image, and I don't want to get rid of it. However, this still looks a little bit plain for me. So I'm coming in with an oldie bitty goodie little trick here. I have a gift card which I am just popping into my ink pad, and I am going to do a very complicated thing by just pressing that card down into the paper. And this just makes some really nice little added marks. You could definitely use any textured stamp that you have. This was just sitting beside me from some texture paste that I had been using in a previous card, and I had cleaned it and dried it, and it was sitting on my table, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to use this. I used to do this a lot in mixed media, used it just to make some lines and stripes. There's no rhyme or reason, and anything you create is fine, but it just creates a little bit more texture around the outside of the image, and it's so easy to do with no special tools. So this is just an old gift card or an old credit card. Anything like that will work absolutely fine. Even a piece of cardboard or cardstock would work fine to create these marks. Have a look through your scrap bin and I'm sure you'll find something that would work. Otherwise, as I said, just find a stamp with some sort of texture. And again, I'm not going to introduce any new colours, it's just those ones that we started off with, those 3 colours that we had in the beginning. And speaking of staying with the 3 colours, I'm going to do the same with the sentiment from the Happy Birthday sentiment set from Waffle Flower. You guys have seen this one in lots of videos already. I am stamping this out onto some white cardstock strips, and I didn't like those first couple that I stamped out, so I am going to stamp a few, but I am stamping in the same oxide ink, the chipped sapphire, and then once I have got a couple that I am happy with, I'm going to cut them out. You could use a die if you have a die to create a nice little fishtail banner, but I just use some little fussy cutting scissors. These are the Cutter Bee scissors, and again, just to make it not stand out and be quite so bright white, I'm going to add a little bit of that inking just around the edges. You could also put a layer of vellum underneath this if you wanted to, or any little bit of ribbon or anything to make it stand out, but the image was the kind of standout part of the card for me, so that is what I'm going to just leave it nice and simple. I will pop it up on a couple of foam squares, and that way it'll stand up off the page. But if you decide to create something similar with just using a couple of colours and how you can kind of create that variation in colour to make sure that it's not flat and creates a little bit of interest, then I would love to see your creations, and the best place that you can do that is over on our Facebook page. We have the best, amazing, supportive community over there. We are so lucky. So I will leave a link to that down in the description box below. I will also leave a link to any of the products that are still available. I often just use products from my stash which I know are discontinued, and I always apologize for that, but I will link anything that is still available down in the description box below. Sometimes you have to click that little arrow that kind of releases the expanded version of the description box, and that's where you'll find all of the links. Just to finish off this card today, I am going to add a couple of little clear gems. I did have different colours there, but I honestly just like the simplicity of these little glass gems. It's nice and easy. If I had different sizes, I couldn't find my ones that were a little bit smaller, but all I'm going to do is pop them on with a little bit of matte medium. That is the Ranger multi-medium and the matte finish, and I just have it in these little glue bottles. And once I kind of put it underneath the little glass gems, it does make them look cloudy, but it dries completely and utterly dry, so they will look just like they do now. And that is pretty much my card finish for today. I really enjoyed challenging myself. I really enjoy this Scented Blooms stamp set. To me, when I look at this, I just get lots of ideas kind of rushing in my head, and I really enjoy that. I love that feeling of lots of ideas that I can use one stamp set for. Now I'm going to bring in this card just here, and this is the other one that I created with exactly the same stamp, and you can see just how different these two looks are. But as I said, same stamp and lots of different options. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video today using limited colours, just a couple of colours to create the card here on the left, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!